Ajahn, I have a question. So if say sometimes you have sometimes you have time pressure, right? I mean the time pressure in terms of that you have some obligation that you commit to finish certain works. I mean commit for others to finish certain work within certain time. But then you know that the time is very tight. So no matter how fast you try, but you still like you expect you can foresee that you still can't finish that. But at that time, then they would like kind of like anxiety just come out. Then if that were you, then how would you?
Patience. Be patient to yourself. This is normal reaction because of the work pressure. So the mind reacts according to its old habit. This is unstoppable. But we should be patient to this self, to this habit, and just let it be. So no matter what you feel, just continue to know the present moment, and the time will pass itself. We don't need to do anything. Just let the time pass. And when the time passes, then all the stress, you can simply observe that it is impermanent. Sometimes we are stressed, sometimes we are not. But if we are too resistant to the stress, then we will be even more stressed. But if we simply accept the stress, this is normal. Then when the work finishes, then the stress is gone, right? And this is what it is happening, nothing more than this. And when the time passes, everything in the past and no longer exists. So the stress is in the past. So simply let go. If we don't think about it, if we don't try to remember it and then try to hurt our mind again, just let it go, and it passes away. And you can observe from the whole process, our mind is changing all the time. When we are facing to the stress from the work, our mind is tight. It is automatically resistant to the work. But we should have an open perspective towards this reaction. Don't think that this mind is me. So it is me who is which is reacting to the work stress. No, it is not you. It is the mind. It is the AI program inside the brain, but it's not you. They come from the past conditions. We cannot stop the reactions, but we can control our perspective, our attitude towards this. The attitude means that what we are practicing at the present moment, but the reaction sometimes is the result from the past conditions. So just let it be. Stress, nothing. When the time passes, then the stress is gone. Actually, everything is like this. Your happiness is the same. When you are having the happy moment, you cannot stop the time passes in the same way. So just be neutral to all these pleasant or unpleasant feelings. We need to be more patient in order to see the changes. Patient until your mind is neutral. Okay. I'm always focusing on patience. And actually, this is the teaching from many masters, from Ajahn Chah saying the first thing that he trained his disciples is patience. Patience and tolerance. Sometimes his disciples need to do some so heavy works, and sometimes he's arranging in seemingly irrational way to test your patience. And when we pass this examination, then our patience grows, and our mind will be more stable, be more neutral towards what is good and what is bad, what is happy, what is sad. Because these are all just emotions. The reactions of the mind are just emotions, mental states. They are never permanent. But if we are impatient, once we are having the unpleasant emotions, then we try to escape immediately. Then we have no chance to see the impermanence. And when we are having the happy moment, and when the time passes, we cannot let go of the past moment. We still try to remember the past happy moment. And when we are forced to come back to the present, then we'll feel stressed, we'll feel unhappy, because we attach so much to the past happy moment, past sensual pleasures. So this is their relative. The more we attach the pleasurable feeling, then the more resistant we'll be towards those unpleasant feelings. So if we want to cultivate patience towards unpleasant feelings, we also need to cultivate the neutral mind towards pleasant feelings. We should do it in the two ways, double ways, because they are related, they are relative. Actually, all the sufferings comes from our greed, aversion, and delusion. Try to contemplate on this, reflect on this, the danger of the greed, aversion, and delusion. This is a very important work for us to think in a realistic way, in a way according to the reality. This is called Yoniso Manasikara. To think in a way according to the Dhamma, according to the truth. So we will understand more, and our mind will grow. The neutrality will grow since as a result of the wisdom. It starts from delusion. Delusion is the mind that it tries to identify something as itself. It tries to identify itself as the body or as the mind or anything else, or identify something is belong to us. This is delusion. And after we have an identity, we have something to cling on to, then we have liking and disliking. We have such a different attitude towards different things. Those which is reinforcing this ego will think that this is pleasurable, and those is destroying our ego will think that this is intolerable, right? Not only the sensual pleasures, apart from the sensual pleasures, we are looking for such reinforcement of ego. Why we feel hurt when we are misunderstood or we are scolded by other people, because of the ego. It is destroying our ego. So we feel that we are hurt. And this is the case that the greed, aversion, and delusion is working together. Try to contemplate on this. What is the danger of the greed, aversion, and delusion? Everyone will feel suffered when the mind is angry or frightened. In the case of aversion, suffering is the necessary feeling together with the aversion. But in the case of craving, sometimes it is not so obvious. Sometimes we'll think that this is kind of pleasurable feelings when we are with something that we like. But the danger of craving is that it catches the mind in that particular object. It's kind of addictive effect. It catches the mind and trap it in that particular object. And once you are away from this object, you will suffer. The craving change into aversion immediately. So aversion and craving are related, are the different sides of the same object. And the more you like, then the more you dislike the opposite situation. This is a must. But everything, both the craving and aversion, comes from delusion. We should have a self first. We should have an ego first. Then we'll choose something to like and choose something to dislike. So we cannot avoid all these three. Once we have one of it, then we are easily we are subject to all these three enemies. Think about the danger of these three, especially the craving, which you are usually misunderstood. We misunderstand that craving is kind of a good thing. It's a source of happiness in our life. If we like some delicious food, and when we can eat that food, we enjoy so much. So we think that the craving is a source of happiness. This is a wrong view. Try to reflect on the danger of the cravings, sensual cravings, and craving to be, craving not to be. These are the cause of sufferings. Okay, I think I'm speaking too long. The host is too nervous. You can start first.
Maybe just start, go ahead for the meditation session and make the announcement after the meditation. Is it okay, Ajahn?
Okay. So you can just continue sitting like this, open-eyed or closed-eyed, and listen to the Dhamma talk. Be at the present moment. Listening to the Dhamma talk is kind of meditation. But we need to know the right way to listen. There are three levels of listening. The first is listening with the ears. So we can hear the sounds, hear the voice, and nothing more than this. We can understand the meaning. The second level is to listen with the brain. We can hear the voice and we can understand the meaning from language with concepts, but nothing more than this. The third level is the true listening, that is to listen with the mind. We hear the voice, we understand the meaning through the brain, and we also understand its real meaning to the mind. It means the mind actually receives the message. So this is the mode of listening that we need during the meditation, during the Dhamma talk. And the key point is to open the mind. Be aware there should not be any resistance towards the voice, towards the Dhamma talk. Otherwise, the talk is meaningless to you. You are simply doing a private meditation session. It is deep in our mind, like the attitude towards the Dhamma talk. Sometimes we think that we are coming for meditation, or for sitting meditation, coming for a peaceful mind, and anything other than this all kind of voice, is kind of obstacle. And we try to block the sound away from the mind. Then we are away from the Dhamma talk. But actually, if we can simply be open to the Dhamma and let go the ego, which is trying to defend itself, then you find that actually the mind is even more peaceful. The mind which is defending itself is stressful. It is because I try to protect the boundary of the ego, and this is actually reinforcing the ego. There's no ego, no self. There's no one meditating. The Dhamma is will come to the mind itself if it is suitable. If the Dhamma is suitable for your present mental state, it will flow into the mind itself. But if it is not suitable, then the mind will simply ignore. We don't need to do anything to defend, to protect ourselves. Just be with the present moment. Everything is at the present moment. The breathing is at the present moment. The Dhamma is at the present moment. If we are not at the present, we are not meditating. We are not practicing in any way. So relax the body and you can try to adjust the body, the air channel of the body. It comes from the nose directly to the lower abdomen. This is the air channel for the breathing. Try to keep this channel straight and empty. Relax, keep it straight and empty. And the breathing comes from the belly button. And the belly button is rising and falling. It is the energy for the breath. So other than this, just keep it open and empty. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to breathe with the nose. We don't need to breathe with the throat, with the lungs. They are just the channel for the air. And investigate this air channel. Is there any place, any tense in any parts of it, especially in the area of diaphragm, the area below the lungs. If this place is tight, then the breathing would not be deep, cannot go deep into the lower abdomen. So relax it. Just breathe in the air and out normally, naturally. So just keep breathing in this with this body, in this posture. You can choose to practice on this stage in the whole meditation session, and it is actually a kind of Kaya Anupassana. It is it's a kind of mindfulness practice on the body. Breathe with the body, or simply observe that this body is breathing. And but here we will not stay in this stage for long. So after we adjust the body posture, relax the air channel, keep it straight and empty, and then we go into the deeper part of the body, to the brain area. This is important because at the beginning of the meditation, the biggest problem is agitation, and after that, sleepiness. And actually nowadays, some of you are already trying to sleep. So we come to this stage, pay attention to the brain, feel the brain, the feeling of sleepiness. We have some feeling in the brain area, the feeling of dullness, heaviness, tightness, or drowsiness. Are you aware of this? It is belong to the brain, not you. You simply can step back from the brain. You are not living in the brain. We are usually deluded that we are living in the brain because this is the center of sensitivity. So it is the easiest part to attach, that we'll think that this is me, this is my home. But it's just a feeling. Withdraw from the brain. It is not you, it is not your home. Just look at the brain. This brain is tired. If you cling onto the brain, thinking that this brain is you, then the tiredness of the brain will have effect on you. This step is especially important for most of the city people who are overusing the brain all the time. The more we use the brain, then you are more in need to practice to relax the brain. But we try to relax the brain without sleeping with the brain. We can let the brain take a sleep, keep the mind away and awake. It's just like the mind is looking at this sleeping brain. Let the mind stay with the breathing and let the brain take a sleep. You can rely on the breathing and just leave the brain sleep. You are not in the brain. The mind is not in the brain. Let the mind stay with the breathing. Let the mind follow the breathing, like a blind man following the guide dog in the darkness. Because now the mind is too weak to be bright. It is blind. It is not awake. So the first step is to build up the mindfulness. That means the continuity of knowing to the present moment. So we choose the breathing as the object to know. So stay with the breathing. Just simply know the breathing. Follow the breathing. And anything other than this, just shut down. Shut down all other programs. And simply know the breathing. Let the breathing guide your mind. And gradually establish your mindfulness. You can intentionally let your brain take a sleep. Otherwise, you are resisting the sleepiness unintentionally, which is making your mind, making your brain even more tired. So you can simply let it sleep intentionally, but keep the mind away from the brain. Keep the mind outside the brain. The knowing is staying with the breathing. Let the brain be recharged in the sleep. Breathing is the duty of the lungs, and knowing is the duty of the mind. And sleeping is the duty of the brain. Just follow the breathing. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to concentrate. Just follow. Just let the breathing guide the mind. You can trust your breathing. It is the guide dog of the blind man. Only when we are relaxed, then we know how tired our mind, our brain is. But this is the fact. This is the real situation of the body. And the way to solve the problem is to let the brain take rest. But the knowing is not sleeping. Just simply let the brain sleep. follow the breathing. And this is a kind of knowing without concentration. Simply knowing. We don't need to concentrate before we can know. And naturally, our brain doesn't need to take a too long sleep. It can recover from just very short rest. But when the mind is attached to the feeling of laziness, then the sleep becomes endless. The mind is knowing. And now pay attention to the center area of your chest. To feel this area. Feel its status. If it is open or closed, repressed or released. Is there any emotions in this area? Open this area, destroy the boundary of the self. Just delete the boundary. There's no boundary between you and the nature. Relax this area. In the background of breathing. Breathe in and out, and let your heart stay in harmony, in neutrality. The emotions, liking and disliking emotions, is the imbalanced heart. When it is balanced, it should be neutral, it should be harmonious, and it is peaceful. Once we choose to like something more than the others, then it is not balanced. And such kind of emotional imbalance can grow into a very, very strong energy. And if we try to reinforce itself by ordering the brain to think something you like or dislike, so as to strengthen the emotion. And sometimes we cannot stop our thinking because of this. The source is from here, because of the emotional imbalance. And when the emotions is balanced, then we'll have a sense of content. The mind will be content with the present moment, content with what it has, what it is. Try to relieve the emotional imbalance, so to liberate our mind. And we do this in the background of breathing. The breathing is the background universe. And when our heart is balanced, then we are ready for the next stage, mindfulness. Try to wake up the mind. The mind is not anything that we are knowing. It is the knowing, but it is not anything that we can know. So just group everything that we are knowing into a single, one single being. And the mind, the knowing, is not this object. So everything that we are knowing, including the breathing, including the feelings, including the sense of peacefulness or thoughts, sensations, everything, just group them into one. And it is not me. It is not the knowing. So separate the knowing and the known. When the mind is awake, it is naturally separated. But when the mind is deluded, it is engaged. such engagement is the start of ego. Try to identify something as itself. When the mind is awake, is mindful enough, then we'll find that this knowing is naturally separated from whatever it is knowing. Whatever that we are knowing is not we, is not us, it's not the self. And even including the knowing itself, it is not me too. It is not the self. It is just a natural function of the mind. And here the mind means the element of consciousness in the universe. So knowing is the function of the element. It's nothing different from the element of earth, water, fire, and wind. So the element of consciousness has the nature of knowing, simply knowing. Only when it is diluted into the activities of the mind, into the mental formation, then it has self. It has something more than knowing. Try to control, try to think. But the consciousness itself is simply knowing. It is a non-doing knowing. But remember, even this knowing is not me. So now the body is breathing, the mind is knowing, and both the body and mind are not me. There is no self in the body and there is no self in the mind. So just leave everything, let go everything, and stay with the Dhamma. Sabbe Dhamma Anatta. All Dhammas are not self. We are not the knowing, we are not the known. But we are the Dhamma. Just let the body breathe itself, and let the mind know itself. But they are not related to us. It's nothing related to self. They are working according to all its conditions. So now we are using the Dhamma as our meditation object. The Dhamma of Anatta. The Dhamma goes beyond the body and mind, the breathing and the knowing. Goes beyond all the thoughts, sensations, feelings in the body and mind. Just let go everything in front of you and behind you. There's no front, no back. They are only the 5 khandhas working, but none of them is you. This is meditation with the theme anatta. All things are not self. So no matter what it comes, what it happens, remember this. It is not you. It is not belong to you. It is just something you can know, or the function to know. When the mind has no self, then it is completely released. If we are more used to this, then we can compare the burden of 5 khandhas. Once we are attached to the 5 khandhas, then we shoulder the burdens. In the sutra, it is said that the 5 khandhas is are heavy burdens. And the noble ones can let go these burdens and never take it up again. Only when we realize that the 5 khandhas are actually burden to us, then we want to let go. Otherwise, we'll still enjoying shouldering the burdens and continue our journeys. The non-self mind is completely non-doing. It doesn't even have the intention to know, but it simply knows. Okay, today time's up. Open your eyes and try to feel the changes in your body and mind from the perspective of non-self. The body is moving, the mind is active, but both of them are not you. Just let it be natural. The more we can let it be natural and keep the perspective of non-self, then the wisdom becomes easier. Okay, Alam. You first.
Hello, everyone. I would like to make an announcement before the Q&A section. And same as the previous sections, today this session will be recorded. And Ajahn has consulted Luang Por Ganha and agreed that starting from today, the video recordings will be released on YouTube for public view. So if you have some personal questions and don't want to raise in the Q&A section, please stay behind online and ask Ajahn after the session finish. But for ladies, because lady is not allowed to talk to Ajahn alone, so it's better to talk to Ajahn in presence of at least one gentleman. And if you need any help, please just let me know. You can leave a message in the chat room to me. Thank you. Ajahn, your time.
Okay, thank you, Anam. And so, first of all, anyone who are rushing to go, then you can raise your hands first. So I will ask you first. Angie, right? Okay, Angie.
Yes, I do. Ajahn.
We are leaving.
We're leaving now because we're up to something later.
So how's your meditation today? Both of you are sleeping.
Because we are in a journey back yesterday, picking her back from her university. So we are whole day in journey yesterday. So we have a bit tired in today's sessions here.
Because I saw both of you nodding, but it's but you can still keep the earphones connected. Can you separate yourself from the tired brain?
On and off. Yeah.
Try to do this. Then we will understand that we are not in the brain. The brain is not the mind. And sleepiness or agitation are just some feelings, the status of the brain. Because the brain is lack of energy, then you feel tired. It is sleepy, it is drowsy. But when if the mind is not connected to this feeling, if it is not attached to the brain, then we simply can observe these feelings. And that is what I said. Just leave the brain sleep, and the mind is awake. The mind can simply stay with the breathing. Staying with the breathing is effortless. It's not kind of trying to know or concentration. It simply follows. Simply stay with the breathing. Let the breathing guide the mind. It is effortless. And through this process, the mind gradually accumulates the power of mindfulness. That is the continuity of knowing to the present moment. And when the mind is stay at the present moment for a longer and longer time, then it has the energy to be awake, wake up from the blind man mode. And when the minds wake up, then the knowing becomes all-embracing. And that is kind of awakened state of the mind. That is what we call the sampajanya. Sampajanya comes from the mindfulness, comes from sati. So it's kind of knowing, automatic knowing. When the knowing is all direction. Then anything happen in the body and mind, it knows immediately. It knows effortlessly. We don't need to direct to that part of the body in order to know that part of the body, but simply knows. And when the mind is awake, then we can separate the knowing and the known. And then we realize that even the knowing is not me. Then gradually the mind come to the reality. It's awake, wake up to the reality. It knows that this body and mind is not me. The knowing is just the function of the mind, and the other just the body and the mental activities. And none of them is me. So we just simply observe in this way, in this perspective, from nowhere. This observation is from nowhere, because once we have some place to stand, that means self, that means ego. If we are standing with the knowing, that means we are thinking that this ego is me, this knowing is me. When we are staying with the body, then we think that this body is me. But if we are standing nowhere, then there's no self. Then we see only the five khandhas. So this is the process of the guided meditation, step by step. But we don't need to finish all the steps in every meditation session. It depends on our situation. Just like sometimes our brain is very tired, then we maybe spend all the time in resting the brain. Just leave the brain sleep. But the mind stay with the breathing, just like the blind man follows the guide dog. It is stuck because the mind is not awake. So just simply follow first. When the mind has no sampajanya, it is stuck. It is not awake. So in this process, we start from mindfulness. Know the present thing. Any object is okay. So just know continuously without effort. Okay.
Okay.
Do you have anything to say? Any more questions?
No more.
No more.
Yeah.
Okay, choose your hand.
Good afternoon, Ajahn. Okay, today is more clearer meditation because I think it's like you don't have to put in more effort, like whether you have to be peaceful or not peaceful. So I feel very light when I don't cling on so much to my mind that it's like last time I used to, like when I meditate I need to be peaceful. So today is like I'm a little bit detached from my mind, because like Ajahn said, it's not me, is it? So I feel very light.
Yes, that's it. So through comparison, we know which one is heavy, which one is light, right? When the mind is not attached to the body and mind, then it has the feeling of light, it has the feeling of release. Then we know that actually this body and mind is a burden. So contemplate on the anicca, dukkha, anatta. You can choose any one of them. But here I use the anatta as a guided meditation. And when our mind is body and mind is peaceful, so the first stage is pacifying the body. In the guided meditation, we do it through the adjusting our air channel, relaxing the body in the breathing. Then you can continue this stage until the body activity is completely pacified, and even the breathing disappears. You can enter jhana with this. The second stage is to pacify the feelings. So after resting our brain, and then we come to the area at the middle of the chest, because this is the center of emotions. This is center of feelings, liking or disliking feelings. So when we are knowing in this area and try to relax, pacify it, balance it. This is to balance the activity of the mind, the mental activity. Because the mental activity, most of them comes from the imbalance the mind. We want to do something and we want not to do the others, liking or disliking. We have such choice. That means the imbalance of the mind. And when it is balanced, it is pacified. So after the body and the mind is pacified, then the knowing mind is obvious, is released, liberated. Then we can know deeper to a more subtle level. You can feel once the mind is connected with what we are knowing, then this is actually the delusion. This is the start of the identity of self. You try to identify self with something. And once it is connected, then the craving and aversion follows. The greed, aversion, and delusion is the activity of the mind itself. So after we wake up the mind, the mind is more neutral and stable. And now it is ready for contemplating Dhamma. So we let go both the body and mind, let go all the feelings, thoughts, everything that happens to us, and observe it from nowhere. We are not anything. We are not in any party of this five khandhas. So this is it's a meditation with Dhamma, Dhammanupassana. Here our theme is Sabbe Dhamma Anatta, or Panchakhandha Anatta. The five khandhas are not self. So we this is the theme of our meditation, but we are not using the object, using the body as the object, using the mind as the object, but using the Dhamma as the object. With such object, we observe everything, including the body and the mind, are actually in the sphere of Dhamma, right? And we can try to keep such kind of contemplation on Dhamma in our daily life. Because in this process, the peacefulness of the mind is not necessary. Once we can contemplate on Dhamma with a stable mind, then the peacefulness is not necessary. When there are thoughts, we know that, oh, this is the sanya khandha, this is the sankhara khandha. That means the perception and the mental formation. These two are usually working together. The perception actually means the translation function, translating the message from the input from the six senses into a system language of the brain. So and then the brain can process on this with this system language. And the processor is the sankhara, it's a mental formation. It's the someone to cook, and the sanya is the material to be cooked, the food. So when we are thinking with concepts. We are thinking with the system language of the brain. So usually they are working together. Once we know that we have been thinking, then we are awake. This is the five khandhas working. It is not me. So try to bring such contemplation into our daily life as frequent as possible. It's not necessary to keep the mind all the time peaceful or all the time mindful, but try to let this Dhamma contemplation happen itself more frequently.
Yeah, so now my object will be on anatta. So it's a contemplation of Dhamma. So I will every time. I always like to use the word step back a bit and then watch all these five aggregate. See how the five aggregate function.
If you can use the word dismiss, it will be better. We are not stepping back from something. Stepping back means there's something stepping back, right? But if you simply relax the attachment to the five khandhas, then actually there is no self. That is the real case. It's simply a kind of relaxation.
Relax from the five khandhas, yeah.
Relax from the attachment to the five khandhas. So this is a more precise description to the situation. So it may give you a sense of stepping back, or you are something looking from the back, but it's just a feeling.
Just a feeling.
Just a feeling. So if we have in this situation, actually you can discover that we don't need to have a single meditation object. The Dhamma is the object. But everything can be changing. And this is a Dhammanupassana. Actually, the Buddha teach only the 4 Satipatthanas. There's no Vipassana. But Vipassana is included inside. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Understand.
Okay.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Alessandra.
Today, the mind, I was a little bit seeing how I was sad for the mind going in and out, because it was not continuous, but it was following. Sometimes it was these 3 levels of hearing. Sometimes it was switching off hearing, but going on some thought, but then coming back. So I don't know. This is the condition of, I don't know the reason for that, that I understand. I cannot know that. There are some causes for this, but that I don't know. But it was very interesting to see that there is this possibility of another approach, another point of view, to see the things from another point of view, not from the usual, to be inside, to be in. So the thoughts were coming. Unluckily, it was seen that it was thoughts, but there was also aversion to them. So the mind was aversive to the thoughts, and didn't see the aversion, was seeing the thoughts.
The thought is the message from the brain, and aversion of craving or delusion is the reaction from the heart, from the mind, and actually the mind is the cause, the mind is the source, and if we don't have the greed, aversion, and delusion, and actually the brain cannot process in the way it likes, in the way according to the defilements. And so if the mind is not deluded, and the source, the cause is not here, then the whole problem can be solved. When the mind is wholesome, then all those unwholesome dhammas cannot arise. So that's why when the mind is mindful, then all the greed, aversion, and delusion cannot appear. The most important point is on the delusion, the very source of all defilements. Even in the case of listening, we simply let the mind be open, be present, and that's all. We don't need to intentionally to listen or to hear to something, but simply let it open and present. And whatever it is suitable, then it comes to you. We don't need to go outside to look for it, but it comes to you. And when the mind is open, it's mindful, then it is without greed, aversion, and delusion. Then there's no obstacle for the Dhamma, for the listening. But once the mind is start to like something and dislike something, that means it has the ego at the back. The greed, aversion, and delusion are a whole family, are the different sides of the defilement. And it is the only obstacle for the knowing mind. And practice the wisdom is to avoid the delusion, and we can listen truly to the Dhamma. So it is also a good practice to listen to Dhamma talk with such mind. So that's why I said it is kind of meditation. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand. Absolutely. It is a kind of meditation.
And what about your daily life?
Yeah, in the daily life, I noticed that sometimes without, I mean, it comes, the mind is noticing state of minds or the presence of how the mind is working. I mean, that there is a kilesa and how it is, what is happening inside, the tendency towards something or the pattern of a thought. So it can happen during the daily life more often.
If our wisdom is strong enough, then we can simply let go. So once we realize it, this is just of the 5 khandhas, and then we can simply let go. Otherwise, we need to accumulate more mindfulness and samadhi first. So you can see from the stages in the guided meditation. The first is the mindfulness, the continuity of the knowing to the present moment. If we can't do anything when the defilement is too strong, when the 5 hindrances are too strong, then do this first. Continuity of knowing to the present moment. That's why I use the simile that following the guide dog in the darkness. When we are not awake, when we are still blind, just follow the guide dog. The second stage is to the second stage is to let the mind be awake. When it's accumulated enough energy of mindfulness, then the knowing becomes all direction. That is kind of awakened stage. The mind is awake. The mind is no longer blind. It is bright. And then we can add the element of wisdom, separate the mind, the knowing from the object, and realizing that both the knowing and the objects are not me. Then this mind is ready for Dhamma contemplation. If we accumulate more on this contemplation on Dhamma, and it will continue into our daily life automatically. When our 6 senses get in contact with anything, and such kind of contemplation will happen. It will jump out itself. It is not self. After we wake from the thinking, we realize it is not self. It is just the functioning of the faculties, right? 5 khandhas. So do this until it becomes a nature of you. And the contemplation becomes automatic. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, brother.
Good morning, Ajahn.
Good morning.
Today, the mind was very happy to just listening to the teachings. It was, I cannot say maybe specific things, but it was really happy to hear it. It was a lot of instructions that it felt very rich. So from the beginning of the sitting, it was this with patience that was carrying along all through the sitting, and it continues with this with understanding this, that the brain and the tiredness in the brain, that it's something different, that it's not me.
Yes.
And that feels very important in the sitting and also for daily life. I think actually that the mind really understands this now and then also in daily life, that when this tiredness is there, that it's not me.
They are just feelings, vedana.
Yeah. But then there is this with emotions, because this is something that I think there is a pattern that is very strong to identify with emotions. And it's like it's in daily life there is going in it feels like it goes in 2 directions, that it's on one side it's like getting more clear that it's not me, and at the same time there come moments where it just feels like it's even more sensitive, like it's like going in two directions, like really, like on one side the mind can really see very often.
There are always two directions. One is the direction of Dhamma, one is the direction of defilements.
Yeah.
When we are deluded, then we are in the defilements.
Yeah.
But when we are not deluded, the mind is simply stay with the truth, the Dhamma. The mind staying with the Dhamma is not separate. But the mind, the deluded mind, into the message, into the concepts, then we have something to like, something to dislike. Then this is the world of suffering. This is what the Buddha described as burning. The whole world is burning. The forms are burning, the eyes are burning, and the eye conscious is burning too. The feelings towards the eye conscious is burning too, and the same to all other senses. And what is the fire of that burns? It is the fire of greed, delusion, greed, aversion, and delusion. So the suffering comes from the greed, aversion, and delusion. And delusion comes first. When we are deluded, then all the problems happen. Delusion is the head. So when we all the time we have two choices. One is be awake. One is be deluded. This is the head, and it decides which way to go, which direction to go. Try to come back to the reality. Be more awake. This is the most important thing to do.
Can it be even that the process is that because it's even sharper, it's sharper now that there is like two very different directions. It's like the suffering is becoming more intense when it goes in the wrong direction.
Yeah. That means because all this comes from comparison. If we have experienced this one side, then we can compare to another side. The deeper we experience, then the stronger the feeling of difference. Right? It is good. That means that we can make it so clear. The different mode of the mind. Once the mind is deluded, once the mind is caught in the defilements, it is already suffering. The aversion is the coarse part of suffering that everyone can feel. Once we are angry, once we are afraid, everyone will feel the unpleasant feeling, right? The craving is more subtle. The fire of the craving is inside. It's something in the inner part. You cannot find it in the surface. But once you try to hold it tight, then you'll be burnt. And the fire of delusion is the most subtle. You can't even feel the heat, but it is the smoke to cover your eyes. But the smoke comes first. Then when you are deluded, then you try to hold the firewood in your hand. The firewood, the burning firewood, when you're holding on the burning part, that is called the aversion. And when you're holding the not being burned part, the wooden part, then it is called craving. But when you're holding the craving too tight, you don't want to let go, then the fire must come to you. Right? You cannot avoid. So try to think on this, the contemplation on the danger of the greed, aversion, and delusion. It gives us more insight and make our mind clearer what to choose, how to live. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and then Ryan.
Hi.
English.
Okay.
See the English.
I just think that like, actually I don't have much to report, but then I think during daily life I'm quite sometimes just lose mindfulness, and then when the emotions evolve, I just follow it. Yeah, it's just kind of like dragged into that, and then maybe for some time until I realize that
illusion is too strong. So try to wake up more frequently. Because if we are so used to the sleeping mode, the sleeping mind, then we will think that the illusion is normal. Because everyone around us is living like this. We think that this is the normal of human being. But actually it's not. If everyone is doing this, doesn't mean that doing this is right. Try to wake up. And in the meditation, it's easier to temporarily wake the mind up. But we need such experience before we can apply into our daily life, before we can distinguish the sleeping and the awake mood. Right? If we don't even ever try to experience the feeling of awakened mode, then we can never know that we are sleeping. Sometimes we are sleeping. That means we are completely unaware. And sometimes we are dreaming. In that case, we are knowing, but we are not awake. We are knowing something that we are living in the concepts, in the symbols, in the message. But we are not awake according to the truth, to the reality. It is actually the functioning of the 5 khandhas, nothing more than this. But we are living in a way that I am living in this way, in that way. So this is a different. Only those who experience can distinguish the difference, right? So remember the steps. If we cannot do the later stage, then try to work on the earlier stage. The first is mindfulness. Second is sampajanya. I don't know which translation would be the most suitable. Or maybe clear comprehension, or kind of all direction knowing. Or personally, I like to describe it as kind of awakened mind. Sampajanya is kind of awakened knowing. It's not simply knowing in a single direction. It's all direction knowing. And then after we have the sati sampajanya, then the mind becomes more stable with the sati sampajanya, and this is samadhi. So you can know with sati sampajanya with a stable mind. The stability in the knowing is built up. And after that, we observe everything with the perspective of Dhamma. So 4 stages, right? Remember these 4 stages. If we cannot do this stage, then go to the previous one. Or even if we cannot do the mindfulness practice, then just let the brain take rest. So live in a life, simply alive. Don't use the brain too much. Come back to the precepts part. And after that, when we have a better precept, better way of living, then practice mindfulness. This is the Eightfold Path, right? The way the Buddha taught. I think this should be the answer for all your questions. Any more questions?
You mean the 4 stage? You just described 3, right? Is it?
4. First is sati.
Okay.
Second is sampajanya.
Yeah, and then the third.
The third is samadhi.
Huh?
Samadhi.
Oh, okay, all right.
That means the knowing, the mind becomes stable. It becomes liberated, becomes stable, unbound, and then we can contemplate clearer.
And the last one is contemplation, right?
Wisdom.
Oh, wisdom. Okay, right.
Contemplation on. You can simply use the anicca dukkha anatta.
Can you speak louder, sorry?
Anicca dukkha anatta.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay. Thank you.
The easiest part.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Okay, and then Joyce.
Good afternoon, Ajahn.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, today mindfulness is very weak. So knowing that a profound of light and dislike mind there. So, but I try to come back to neutral stage. So way better towards the end.
So that's it. Know how to use the meditation. It depends on the status of our own mind. We know the mechanism and try to apply to our real situation. And also, if we want to improve in the long term, we need to observe the precepts together. Because if the way of living is always making our mind or our brain unbalanced, then we every time when we do the meditation, we'll be like this, right? Or even when we are doing the same work, working with the same length of time, but we can do it with more mindfulness, and have a better sleep in the night. It's a very good foundation for our daily life. Try to arrange it better. Everything is connected. The whole way of living is connected. We cannot leave the precepts. Cannot leave the discipline on the behavior and speech. It is so important, right? Second.
Hello, Ajahn. I think today was okay. I don't have anything particular to share. I was able to stay with my breathing, using that as a tool to be present. But there was a very heavy and dull quality to the mindfulness, I suppose, or to the knowing. That was it. And I think the other thing I noticed was when at the end of the session, when we were coming out of the meditation, just how simply opening my eyes and seeing, I guess, the world again gives me the sense that as if I am the center, and the quality of the knowing does change, because I have this feeling again as if I'm seeing things and reacting and feeling and understanding the center
and
point.
separate clearly what is external and what is internal, right? You have a strong sense distinguishing the inner and outer, and this is the knowing and the known. But even the knowing is not me. Remember this. Even this knowing mind, even the center of the world is not me. Don't think that this is me. This is my world. Both of them are not me. They are just the Dhamma. Then the mind will be different if we think in this perspective, right? So try to keep this in the daily life. Sometimes it happens automatically, suddenly. It happens itself. And sometimes happens maybe for 2 or 3 seconds, and then we dilute again. But it doesn't matter. Just let it happen. if we contemplate on the Dhamma more, then we understand more. Such kind of contemplation is it's not kind of intellectual thinking, but it's also not the kind of simply knowing, but it knows from a perspective, knows from the perspective of the right view. Then wisdom comes from this way. And in the daily life, don't care about the peacefulness of the mind. Just let it be natural. And when the mind is not peaceful, then we just simply know that it is not peaceful. It is the work of the five khandhas. And when the agitation becomes too strong to be mindful, then we need to recharge, because we need to make it balanced. But don't be afraid of the peaceful mind in the daily life, because only when the defilements come, then we have the chance to develop the wisdom. The wisdom comes from the defilement, because the wisdom is the power to let go the defilement. And we can only train the power of wisdom through the presence of defilement. If the mind is all the time in the peaceful jhana state, and there's no defilement happen to our mind, then we have no power of wisdom, right? Okay. And Anna, I remember yesterday you didn't say anything.
Nothing special this week, and because during meditation or right after the meditation, because the mind is quite peaceful, so it's easier to observe the quick changes or quick responses of the mind or of the mood to the external environment. But in daily life, especially when I'm in a busy mode and the work pace is very quick, it's very difficult to maintain. Actually, I try to maintain. I know it's not good, but often I try to maintain a state. The mind can accept all the changes of the mood or of the running thoughts. And so in daily life, it's much more difficult to observe the changes of the mind.
So we need to have more samadhi. That means the stability of the knowing. Because when the mind is not stable, then whatever we see is not stable. Just like when we are standing on a shaking table, then whatever we look at is shaking. So we can try to add more stability of the mind into the life. It's not necessarily comes from sitting or walking meditation, but sometimes it can come from the concentration onto our present work. Whatever that makes our mind strong, makes our mind stable, and this is that can be the source of samadhi. When the mind is stable, and sometimes have a strong sense drawing back to the core. That is the experience, just like Megan just said. You can clearly distinguish the external and the internal, the knowing and the known. But it happens suddenly. Maybe doesn't necessarily come from meditation. But it happens when the mind has the factor of the samadhi. The mind is stable, is steady, and it becomes strong. Then the such kind of view happens itself. This is the separation of the mind and the objects. but you can live our life with all the practice of precepts, samadhi, and wisdom. We need all, and we need to have a strong mind, more energy to practice, and such energy comes from the five spiritual powers, 5 spiritual faculties. So not only meditation, but we need to build up more faith, and more diligence, and more mindfulness, samadhi, wisdom. All these give us energy, and when the mind has more energy, then it becomes more stable. Otherwise, even we are peaceful in the meditation, but after the meditation, our mind is still weak, still vulnerable, still subject to easy to be shaken. Peacefulness doesn't mean stability, but the mind can become more and more stable in the peacefulness. So when the stability is built up, actually it can overcome the unpeaceful mind. So their relations are like this. Okay, be strong. You need to be more strong. Okay. So anyone want to ask or want to share, gossip, anything? Yes, Daniel.
Yes, thank you. Ajahn, I like the Dharma talk very much today, because just one of my sitting before that, I have an experience which I'm not quite sure what it is, but the question was exactly I did what you just asked us to do today. So in this process, I was actually sitting meditation, and I was doing the same thing. What I do is I open up my heart and let my heart be the open space. So, and my mind was actually, we said, quite energetic and quite clear. So I'm aware of I'm aware of all the things. And then I opened up my heart, and that opening up heart was kind of like, I feel that the changes in certain things that I didn't understand. Because first of all, I find that I can still feel the pain in some part of my leg. So that pain is still there. I can feel where am I sitting. But slowly the body is like not there. The body is like disappearing. But I know there are parts that are still pain, that are still sitting position. So that's why when you say today that when you open up your heart and your heart has got no grounding and nothing to hold on, and I got this now position that I start to feel that I don't know what kind of state I'm in, whether I'm actually getting more diluted or I'm getting clearer, because I'm neither this nor that, because I still know my body, I still know the pain of the body, and I'm still aware of certain part of the body, but the other part of the body is like not clear to me. So maybe
that is the situation from samadhi. When the mind becomes more and more subtle, and sometimes it will automatically ignore the coarse parts. Sometimes you will feel the parts of your body disappear. Sometimes the whole body disappears. So this is because the mind is more interested in those more subtle parts of this body and mind. So you maybe go completely with the breath, or even with the nimitta, or even with the mind. It is more interested in something more subtle rather than the coarse body. So that when the mind happens like this, just know it is like this. It is nothing special. And we just know whatever they happen. None of them is me. The knowing is not me, and the body is not me. The pain is not me, but they are working themselves. The mind is knowing the pain, knowing the posture, but it's nothing related to me. You just let it happen. And this mind is awake. This mind is not deluded. Because we are staying with the Dhamma. Everything is not me. The five khandhas are not me. Right? Then that means we are with the reality. We are not deluded. The mind is deluded when we think that we are something. We think that we are anything. We are something. Then we are deluded. When the pain comes and we think I'm painful, then this mind is deluded. Right? When the mind is not peaceful, and we think that I'm not peaceful, then this is deluded. The undeluded mind simply perceive that this body is painful, and this mind is not peaceful. They are of the five khandhas. And even the one who is knowing all this is not being too. So that there are different perspectives. Right? Understand?
Yeah.
And Kelly, do you want to say something?
Not really, because not much to share today.
Okay.
So, yesterday we attended Ajahn.
Do you understand the stages of the guided meditation?
I'm still learning from that, because you say if your mind is not clear, you just take the guide dog as your
Okay. So sometimes our mind is more awake, sometimes not. This is normal because the mind is impermanent. They are not belong to us and not under our control. So we know how to adjust it, and we know how to guide. And this is because this guided mind, peaceful mind, is tool for Dhamma contemplation, for wisdom. We should think in this way. Wisdom is our goal, but the peaceful mind is the tool. It's the instrument. It's the boat crossing the river. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so any more questions? If not, then we can finish earlier, okay?
And we thank you for Ajahn for his precious time, and also thank you Meiji Fafas for her telecom equipment. And now let's bow to Ajahn for 3 times. Ajahn Vadana, Abhivatana. Ajahn Vadana, Abhivatana. Ajahn Vadana, Abhivatana. Thank you all, and see you next week. But Ajahn, next week, because you are in another monastery.
Yeah, it is impermanent.
So this meditation session, the Sunday meditation session, may be
uncertain.
Uncertain, maybe a little bit postponed, delayed. So if we once we receive notice from Ajahn, we will send out in the WhatsApp group, inform you in the WhatsApp group if there is any changes. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajahn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.